A rich man walked past a beggar. Then his son turned back and whispered, "Dad, she's beautiful." The morning fog clung to the cobblestones of the city like a silken veil, hiding the sharp edges of wealth and poverty alike. High above, the gilded towers of Baron Cayley's palace pierced the gray sky, shining with the light of 1,000 windows, each reflecting the ambitions of their occupants. Below, the streets wound like forgotten rivers, narrow and crooked, where merchants shouted and beggars whispered, hoping for coins that rarely came. Lorien, the son of the richest man in the kingdom, walked through the city with measured steps, his cloak brushing the cold stones. His father, Baron Cayley's, strode beside him, tall and imposing, exuding authority that made even the guards walk straighter. Yet Lorien's eyes wandered, drawn not to the splendor of the palace windows, but to the quiet shadows that curled in the corners of the streets. It was there, near a crumbling fountain, that he saw her. She was a girl, young, with hair dark as midnight and eyes that shimmered with an unspoken sadness. She knelt on the damp ground, her thin hands gathering coins that clinked faintly into a rusted tin cup. Her clothes were torn and patched in mismatched fabrics, and her feet were bare, the skin calloused and marked with dirt. Yet in Lorien's eyes she was beautiful, not because of any jewel or dress, but because she moved with a grace that seemed impossible in her circumstance, like a song floating in the air. "She's beautiful," Lorien whispered, almost to himself. Baron Cayley's eyes followed his son's gaze. "Do not be distracted by the poor," he said sharply. "They are shadows of life, nothing more." But Lorien could not turn away. There was something in the girl's expression, a quiet strength wrapped in sorrow, that tugged at him. Something almost familiar. He did not know what it was, but he knew he had to see her again. The girl looked up suddenly, her eyes meeting Lorien's. For a heartbeat, time itself seemed to pause. Her gaze was wary, yet it held a spark of recognition, as if she had been waiting for someone who might understand. Lorien felt his chest tighten. Before he could step closer, Baron Cayley's led him forward. "Enough of this nonsense," he said. "We have duties to attend to." Lorien followed, his mind torn. Every step away from her felt heavy, like leaving a piece of himself behind. He stole one last glance over his shoulder. The girl was already turning back to her cup as if nothing had happened, yet he could feel her eyes lingering on him, just a moment longer than necessary. That night, Lorien could not sleep. He lay in his chamber high above the city, listening to the distant hum of carriages and the whisper of the wind through the palace towers. His thoughts kept returning to the girl. Who was she? Why did he feel such a pull toward her? And why did it feel as though the air itself changed when she was near? The next morning, he rose before the sun, slipping out of the palace while his father still slept. He walked the familiar streets, now empty except for the early merchants and a few scavenging cats. And there she was again, near the same fountain, her cup almost empty. This time she looked directly at him and did not look away. Lorien felt a thrill of courage and fear swirl together. He approached slowly, careful not to startle her. "Good morning," he said softly. The girl's eyes narrowed, wary but not unfriendly. "Why do you speak to me?" she asked, her voice like wind through reeds, fragile yet sharp. I do not know," he admitted, taking a step closer. "I just wanted to see you." She studied him for a long moment. There was something in his face, a sincerity that she had learned to recognize in the rare few who were not cruel or greedy. Finally, she nodded slightly. "Then see me, but do not touch. The world does not forgive curiosity." Lorien smiled faintly, a mixture of amusement and admiration. "I will remember that." Days passed, and he returned each morning. Each time he found her in the same place, as if the fountain itself had claimed her. Slowly they began to speak, not in long conversations, but in small exchanges, sharing fragments of life. He learned that her name was Elise. She spoke little of her past, and he did not press. Some things, he felt, were not meant to be revealed too quickly. But the city had eyes, and whispers traveled faster than wind. Lorien's father noticed the boy's fascination with the girl. "Lorien," Baron Cayley said one evening, the amber candlelight casting shadows across his stern face, "do you not tire of staring at shadows in the street? Your place is here among those who matter. She is nothing but a beggar. Her life is nothing. Do you wish to ruin your future for this illusion?" Lorien's hands clenched. "I do not know if it is an illusion, father. There is something about her, something I cannot explain." Baron Cayley's eyes hardened. "Then you will learn the hard way. The world does not favor weakness. You will forget this girl." but Lorien could not forget. Even as he walked the grand halls of the palace, even as he attended formal dinners and watched his father negotiate power with other nobles, his thoughts returned to Elise. He remembered the way her eyes had met his, the quiet strength that seemed to radiate from her despite her poverty, and the almost imperceptible shimmer in the air around her, like a candle flame resisting the wind. One evening, curiosity overcame caution. Lorien slipped out into the streets once more, the moon a silver blade in the sky. The city was quiet now, the fog thickening around the fountains and alleyways. And there she was, kneeling as always, her tin cup empty, her face lifted toward the cold moonlight. "Elise," he whispered. She looked up, startled. For a moment he thought she would run, but she did not. Instead, she studied him with those strange, knowing eyes. "Why do you follow me?" she asked softly. "Because I want to understand," he said, stepping closer. "I want to know you." Her lips curved into a faint, sad smile. "Few wish to know me, Lorien, most see only my shadow." "I do not see a shadow," he said quietly. "I see something bright, something that matters." The wind rose suddenly, swirling fog around them like a veil. Lorien reached out instinctively, but before his fingers could touch her, a cold shadow darted between them, unseen but felt. The hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. Elise flinched. "You feel it too," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "The darkness follows me." "What do you mean?" he asked, his heart beating faster. She shook her head, glancing at the streets. "Some things are not for the eyes of the living. You should go." But Lorien did not move. "I will not leave you," he said firmly. For a moment, silence fell. Only the distant echo of a carriage wheel and the whisper of the fog filled the air. Then, almost imperceptibly, a figure slipped into the shadows behind her, a dark presence, silent and watchful as though it had been waiting for this moment. Elise's eyes widened and she grabbed his hand. "Lorien, you must trust me," she said. "If you follow me, nothing will be the same." He felt a thrill of fear and excitement. "I trust you," he said, though he did not fully understand why. The night seemed to deepen around them, the city fading into mist. Lorien knew, with a certainty he could not explain, that this encounter was only the beginning. That somewhere beyond the fog, beyond the shadows, a story waited, a story of danger, of magic, and of something far more powerful than he had ever known. And somewhere in the silent corners of the city, the shadow watched, waiting for the next move. The morning after their first night in the fog, Lorien could not stop thinking about Elise. The memory of her hand in his lingered, warm and fleeting, like a candle's glow in the darkness. He rose before dawn, slipping silently from the palace, careful not to wake the servants or disturb the heavy silence of the grand halls. The streets were quiet, empty except for the stray cats that prowled along the cobblestones. The fog clung to the edges of the buildings, softening the harsh lines of the city. Lorien followed the path he had memorized, seeking the girl who had captured his attention and heart. And there she was, sitting near the crumbling fountain, her eyes closed as if listening to some sound only she could hear. Her cup sat empty before her. "Elise," Lorien said softly. She opened her eyes and looked at him with caution but not fear. "You should not come here," she whispered. "There are things you do not understand." "I want to understand," he said firmly. "I want to know you, I want to know your world." For a moment she considered him silently. Then with a small, almost sad smile, she stood. "Then follow me," she said, stepping lightly into the fog. "But remember, some paths cannot be turned back from." Curiosity and excitement rushed through Lorien as he followed her through the narrow alleys and winding streets. The city seemed to change as they moved deeper into its forgotten corners. The buildings grew older, their stones dark with age, and the air shimmered faintly, like magic hiding just beyond sight. "This way," Elise said, leading him to a narrow stairway hidden behind a stack of crates. They descended, and the air grew colder, filled with a faint hum that vibrated against Lorien's chest. He could feel it in his bones, a power he had never sensed before. Finally, they emerged into a courtyard, hidden beneath the city. Strange plants with glowing leaves grew along the edges, and fountains of crystal-clear water glimmered under a light that had no source. The walls were covered with symbols and runes, ancient and mysterious. "This is beautiful," Lorien said, his voice barely more than a whisper. Elise's eyes softened. "This is my world," she said. "The world you never see from the streets above. There are rules here and dangers. You must listen carefully." Lorien nodded. "I will." She led him through the courtyard, stopping near a small, circular pool. I am bound by a curse, she said, her voice low. It is old, older than the city itself. I cannot touch certain things, and there are shadows that follow me wherever I go. Most people only see the surface, the beggar, but there is more, and it is not safe. What kind of curse? Lorien asked, his heart quickening. Elise looked down into the water, her reflection trembling. I am tied to a spirit that grows stronger with the suffering I witness. If I am treated cruelly, it feeds. If I am treated with kindness, it watches and waits. You must understand, Lorien, kindness can save me, but it can also put you in danger. Lorien felt a chill, but he did not hesitate. I do not care about the danger, he said softly. I want to help you, I want to be here. For a moment, Elise looked at him as though weighing his words, then she nodded. Very well, but you must follow my rules. No one from the world above may enter here without knowing the truth, and once you see it, you cannot pretend it does not exist. She guided him deeper into the hidden courtyard, where shadows danced like living things along the walls. Lorien noticed faint shapes moving just beyond the edge of his vision, but whenever he tried to focus, they vanished. This is why I stay hidden, Elise said quietly, because the world above it does not understand what waits here. Lorien reached out, but she gently stopped him. Not yet, she said. You must learn patience, you must see clearly before you touch. They walked in silence, the hum of magic growing stronger. Lorien noticed that the air seemed thicker here, almost alive. When he breathed in, he felt a spark of energy, something that made his senses sharper and his thoughts clearer. This place, it is alive, he whispered. Yes, Elise said, and it will protect me or test me depending on the choices I make. You must be careful. As they moved, she began to teach him small things. How to sense the magic in the air, how to recognize the shadows that lurked, and how to move silently without disturbing the currents of the hidden world. Lorien absorbed everything, his fascination growing with every passing moment. You are learning quickly, she said, a hint of admiration in her voice. Most cannot see even a fraction of what you see, he smiled. Then I am glad I found you, I want to see everything. Elise paused and looked at him, her expression serious. There is something else you must know. The spirit, it is not the only danger. Those who seek to control magic will come. The world above it is hungry for power, and I am considered valuable. Lorien felt a tight knot in his chest. Then we will face it together, he said without hesitation. Elise studied him, her eyes searching his face. For the first time, Lorien saw something soft in her gaze, a trace of hope. You are brave, she whispered. Brave, but perhaps too trusting. I hope your courage is enough. Hours passed as they explored the courtyard. Lorien marveled at the strange creatures that moved silently among the glowing plants, at the pools that reflected stars even though the sky above was gray, and at the hidden runes that pulsed with quiet energy. By afternoon, Elise led him to a small library carved into the stone beneath the city. Shelves stretched to the ceiling, filled with books bound in leather, some glowing faintly with magic. She picked one up, its pages filled with symbols Lorien could not understand. This is my inheritance, she said. Knowledge passed down through those who walked this path before me, and some knowledge, dangerous knowledge. That is why I must stay hidden. Lorien ran his fingers over the pages, feeling a strange warmth. I wish I could understand all of this, he said softly. You will in time, Elise said. But first, you must understand me, my past, my curse, my choices. Only then can you truly see what I am. He nodded, feeling a deep connection to her words. I will wait, I will learn. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the hidden courtyard. Elise turned to him, her expression serious. Tonight, I must leave. The spirit stirs as the moon rises. You should return to the world above, Lorien. It is not safe here after dark. I do not want to leave you, he said, his voice tight with emotion. You must, she replied. But tomorrow, come again, I will show you more if you are brave enough. Reluctantly, Lorien followed her instructions, climbing the hidden stairway back into the city streets. The fog had thickened, and the lamps flickered weakly, casting dancing shadows on the cobblestones. He paused for a moment, looking back toward the spot where she had vanished. A faint shimmer lingered in the air, like the memory of a touch. The next morning he returned, eager to see her again, but she did not appear at the fountain. Hours passed, and a cold worry crept into his heart. Then, just as the sun reached its highest point, he heard a soft laugh behind him. Turning, he saw Elise stepping lightly through the shadows, her eyes sparkling with mischief and caution. You are persistent, she said. Few would come again after being told to wait. I will wait, he said firmly. I will follow wherever you lead. I want to understand. Her lips curved into a small smile. Then come. Today I will show you more of the hidden world, and perhaps a little of its danger. She led him through narrow alleys that twisted impossibly, revealing hidden gardens, fountains that flowed with glowing water, and strange creatures that watched silently. Lorien's heart raced with wonder and fear. Every step seemed to draw him deeper into a world he had never imagined, yet one he felt destined to know. As the day faded, the hum of magic grew louder, almost like a song that only he could hear. Lorien realized that he was no longer just a visitor in this hidden world. He was becoming part of it, but danger was never far. Shadows moved just beyond his vision, and the air was thick with the sense that unseen eyes were watching. Elise glanced at him, her expression serious. Remember, the world above does not forgive curiosity, and the shadows below do not forgive mistakes. Lorien nodded, gripping her hand lightly. Then I will be careful, he said, though his heart thudded with the thrill of the unknown. As night fell, they paused in a small courtyard filled with glowing flowers. The air was thick with magic, and the faint shimmer of unseen forces rippled across the ground. Elise looked at him, her expression both tender and fearful. Tomorrow, she whispered, we will face something you may not be ready for. The spirit stirs and it will test you, Lorien. He met her gaze, determination burning in his chest. Then I will face it. I will face it with you. Elise's lips curved into a faint smile, though her eyes betrayed the worry she could not hide. Then let us hope. Courage is enough. The fog rolled back over the city streets, hiding the hidden courtyard from the eyes of the world above. But in the quiet shadows, a presence stirred, watching them. A dark figure, silent and patient, waited for the moment when the boy and the girl would step too far, when the hidden world would demand a price. And as Lorien returned to the palace that night, he knew one thing with absolute certainty. His life had changed forever. The world he had known was gone, replaced by something vast, magical, and dangerous. And at the heart of it all was Elise. The hidden courtyard was quiet under the silver light of the moon. The glowing flowers and shimmering fountains cast soft reflections that danced on the walls. But there was tension in the air, a quiet, unshakable tension that made Lorien's heart beat faster. Elise stood at the center, her dark hair falling around her face like a curtain, and for a moment she looked almost like a shadow herself. You need to know the truth, Elise said, her voice barely above a whisper. The truth about me, about the curse. Lorien stepped closer, his eyes fixed on her. I want to know everything, he said, though a part of him feared what he might hear. She hesitated, as if weighing whether to reveal the secrets she had carried for so long. Then, finally, she spoke. I am bound to a spirit older than the city itself. It feeds on suffering, on cruelty, on the darkness in the hearts of men. Every time someone shows me hatred, greed, or violence, it grows stronger. And it waits, always, for the moment when it can take control. Lorien's brow furrowed. Then that shadow we saw, that presence watching us? Yes, she said. It is never far, it knows everything I feel, and it is drawn to anyone who feels for me. If you show me kindness, it will test you. If you falter, if your heart weakens, it can consume you both. A chill ran through Lorien. Why didn't you tell me before? Because most cannot understand, Elise said, her voice trembling slightly. Most flee, but you have stayed, and that makes you different. He reached for her hand, and she let him take it. There was warmth there, but also a tremor, a flicker of fear that made his chest tighten. I am not afraid, he said softly. We will face it together. Elise studied him, a mix of admiration and worry in her eyes. Brave, but perhaps too trusting. You do not know what waits in the shadows. Lorien swallowed, but he did not let go of her hand. Then teach me. Show me how to protect you. Show me how to face it. For the next hours, Elise guided him through the hidden world beneath the city, teaching him to sense magic, to recognize the subtle signs of danger, and to feel the currents of energy that flowed like invisible rivers through the courtyard. Focus on the hum in the air, she instructed. Listen to it not with your ears but with your mind. The spirit will make itself known through disturbance, through tension. You must learn to feel it before it acts. Lorien concentrated, closing his eyes, feeling the vibrations in the air, the subtle pull of unseen forces. At first it was overwhelming, a tide of sensation he could barely comprehend. But slowly, under Elise's guidance, he began to sense the edges of the hidden world, the whispers of shadows, the flickers of light where magic lingered, the currents that told him which paths were safe and which were not. "You are learning quickly," Elise said. "Faster than I expected. Most would be lost, confused, or frightened." He smiled faintly. "Then I am glad I did not run." The night grew deeper, and Elise led him to a small chamber hidden behind a cascade of ivy. The walls were carved with intricate runes that glowed faintly, illuminating the space with a gentle light. In the center stood a mirror, framed with silver filigree that seemed to shimmer in the dim glow. "This mirror," Lorien began, sensing something unusual about it. "It shows what is hidden within," Elise explained. "Not just your reflection, but the truth inside your heart, and also the danger that stalks us." Lorien hesitated, then stepped forward. As he gazed into the mirror, the reflection shifted. He saw himself standing in the courtyard, but the shadows around him moved differently, twisting and bending as if alive. In the corner of the mirror, a figure lurked, a dark, indistinct presence with eyes like burning coals. "That is the spirit," Elise whispered. "It tests us always. It will not stop until it finds weakness." Lorien felt a shiver run through him, but he did not turn away. "I will not falter," he said, though his heart beat rapidly. Elise placed her hand on his shoulder. "You must understand, it is not enough to fight with strength alone. The spirit feeds on fear, doubt, and anger. You must also use your mind, your heart. Compassion can be a weapon, but also a shield." He nodded, absorbing her words. "Then I will learn, and I will not fail you." For the next several nights, they trained together. Lorien learned to sense the currents of magic, to move silently, and to recognize the shadows before they struck. He learned small spells of protection, guided by Elise's hand, and began to understand the balance between light and darkness. At first, Elise kept her distance, testing him, observing how he reacted under pressure. She conjured illusions, small shadows that darted and lunged to see if he would panic or stay calm. Lorien remained focused, slowly gaining confidence, and the bond between them deepened with each test. "You are ready for more," Elise said one night, her eyes serious. "But tomorrow, the spirit will test you in a way you cannot predict. You must be prepared for anything." Lorien felt both fear and excitement. "Then I will face it. Whatever comes, I will stand with you." The next day, as dawn broke over the hidden courtyard, a disturbance rippled through the air. The shadows moved unnaturally, swirling like smoke caught in an unseen wind. Lorien felt the pull immediately, a tug at his chest that warned him something had changed. "The spirit," Elise whispered, her voice tense. "It knows we are ready. It will act." Before they could move, the shadows coalesced into a dark figure, taller than any human, its form shifting and flickering as if it were made of smoke and night itself. Its eyes burned with a cold, unfeeling light, and a low hum vibrated through the courtyard. Lorien stepped forward, though fear gnawed at his stomach. "I am ready," he said, more to himself than to Elise. The spirit moved with unnatural speed, circling them, testing, probing, searching for weakness. Lorien felt a pull at his mind, a whisper of doubt, fear, and uncertainty. It was subtle, almost gentle, but it made his hands tremble and his heart pound. "Focus," Elise shouted, placing a hand on his arm. "Do not let it touch your mind." He closed his eyes, breathing deeply, and reached for the calm he had learned in their training. He imagined a light inside him, a warmth that could not be extinguished, a shield of trust and courage. Slowly, the whispering faded, replaced by clarity. The spirit halted, tilting its head, sensing the shift. Lorien opened his eyes and saw it watching him, uncertain. He stepped forward, his hand brushing against the currents of magic in the air. A faint glow gathered around him, a shield of light that pushed against the darkness. Elise watched, her expression a mix of pride and worry. "Good, you are holding it back. Keep it steady." The shadow recoiled, then lunged, faster than Lorien could react. But he was ready. He raised his hand, focusing on the shield, and the shadow struck it, dissipating into smoke and mist. For a moment, the courtyard was quiet, the only sound the faint ripple of the fountains. "You did it," Elise whispered, stepping closer. "You held it, you protected us." Lorien felt a thrill of relief, but also exhaustion. "It was difficult," he admitted, breathing heavily. "But I will do it again. I will face it as many times as I must." Elise's eyes softened, and for the first time she allowed herself to step closer, placing her hand on his chest. "I believe you," she said quietly. "But remember, every victory draws its own challenge. The spirit will learn from this. It will test us again, and next time it may be stronger." Lorien nodded. "Then we will be ready." For a moment they stood together, hands touching, hearts beating in quiet rhythm. The danger had passed, but the bond between them had grown stronger. Lorien knew with a certainty he could not explain that he would never leave her side. Not now, not ever. But even as they stood in the quiet courtyard, the shadows stirred at the edges, restless and patient. The spirit had retreated, but it had not vanished. It was only waiting, biding its time, preparing for the next test. And somewhere deep within the city, beyond the fog and the gilded towers, the world watched and waited, unaware that two hearts, one of wealth, one of mystery, had already begun a journey that would change everything. End of Part 3. The hidden courtyard had grown colder as the sun disappeared behind the horizon, leaving only the silver glow of the moon to illuminate the world. Lorien and Ely stood together, their breaths forming small clouds in the chilly air. The night hummed with an unseen energy, as if the city itself were holding its breath. "The spirit is restless," Elise whispered, her eyes scanning the shadows that stretched like fingers across the walls. "It has grown stronger since last night, and it knows you now. It will test you in ways you cannot yet imagine." Lorien stepped closer, his hand brushing against hers. "Then we face it together," he said firmly. "No matter what comes, I will not leave you." Elise studied him for a moment, a flicker of hope and fear in her eyes. "You are brave, but the darkness ahead is not like what you have faced before. It will not only challenge your strength, but your heart." For a long moment, they stood in silence, listening to the faint hum of magic that wound through the courtyard like invisible threads. Then Elise turned and led him through a narrow archway hidden behind a wall of glowing ivy. The passage twisted downward, winding like a river carved through stone. "This way," she said softly. "We must go to the Forest of Shadows. It lies beneath the city, a place where time moves differently. The spirit will be stronger there, and the trials you face will be greater." Lorien followed, his heart pounding with both excitement and fear. Every step seemed to draw him further from the world he had known, from the safety of light and comfort. The air grew colder, heavier, almost alive with anticipation. As they descended, strange lights flickered in the corners of his vision. Shadows moved with purpose, darting between the trees that began to emerge as they entered the forest. Lorien realized that this place was not just a forest, it was alive. Every tree, every stone, every leaf seemed connected to the hidden currents of magic that Elise had taught him to sense. "Do you feel it?" Elise asked, her voice barely audible over the gentle rustle of leaves. "The energy here is older than the city, older than the walls above." "It can guide you or mislead you," Lorien nodded. "I feel it like the forest is alive and watching." She smiled faintly. "Yes, but be careful, not everything that moves in the shadows is what it seems." As they walked, the forest grew denser, and the hum of magic became louder, vibrating through Lorien's chest. He felt the pull of the spirit, faint but insistent, tugging at the edges of his thoughts. Doubt, fear, and uncertainty whispered in his mind. He shook his head, focusing on the warmth in his heart, the trust he had in Elise, the courage he had cultivated, and the light he carried within him. "You are stronger than you know," Elise said quietly, noticing the change in his expression. "But strength alone will not save you. You must also trust in your heart." They paused by a small clearing where the moonlight poured like silver rain. In the center stood a pool of black water, still and reflecting the night sky. Elise approached it, her hand hovering above the surface. "This is the mirror pool," she said. "It shows not only what is, but what could be and what must be faced." Lorien stepped closer, peering into the dark water. For a moment, all he saw was his reflection. Then it shifted. Shadows danced across the surface, forming visions of fears, failures, and losses he had never known. He saw himself faltering, unable to protect Elise, consumed by the darkness. The images were vivid, terrifying, but he forced himself to breathe deeply, remembering the light in his heart. "Do not be afraid," Elise whispered. "It is only a test. What you see is not certain. It is a warning, a challenge. You must face it with courage." Lorien nodded, gripping her hand. "I will face it. I will not let it control me." Suddenly, the air around them shifted. The shadows in the forest deepened, coalescing into shapes that moved with purpose. The spirit had arrived, drawn by the energy of the mirror pool and the courage radiating from Lorien. It was larger than before, its form twisting and flickering, as if made from smoke and shadow. Its eyes glowed with a cold light, and the hum of magic intensified, vibrating through the ground and into Lorien's bones. "Stay close to me," Elise said, her voice urgent. She extended her hands, drawing energy from the forest, from the glowing plants, and from the currents of magic she could sense. A faint light gathered between them, illuminating their faces and creating a shield against the encroaching darkness. The spirit circled them, testing, probing, searching for weakness. Lorien felt its pull, subtle but insistent, tugging at his mind, whispering fears and doubts. The images of failure from the mirror pool returned, stronger this time, trying to shake his confidence. "You must focus," Elise said firmly. "Do not let it touch your mind." He closed his eyes, taking a deep breath, and felt the warmth in his heart. He imagined a light expanding from within him, filling every corner of his being, pushing back the whispers and the shadows. Slowly, the spirit recoiled, sensing the strength of his resolve. Lorien opened his eyes and stepped forward, facing the spirit directly. He raised his hands, channeling the currents of energy he had learned to feel. A faint glow emanated from him, connecting with Elise's power to form a shield that pushed against the darkness. The spirit attacked, lashing out with tendrils of shadow, testing their defenses. Lorien felt the force of its power, but he held steady, drawing strength from Elise and from the courage in his heart. Together, they pushed back, their combined energy creating a barrier of light that forced the spirit to retreat momentarily. "You are doing well," Elise said, her voice steady despite the tension. "But it will not give up. You must be ready for anything." The spirit recoiled, then struck again, faster and stronger. Lorien's shield flickered, and for a moment fear crept in. But he remembered her words, remembered the warmth of trust and love between them. He focused on that, letting it guide him, and the shield strengthened, holding the spirit at bay. Hours passed, though time felt different in the forest. Shadows and light danced in an endless struggle, the spirit testing them in ways that were both physical and mental. Lorien and Elise fought together, their bond deepening with every challenge. He began to understand her magic in a way he had not before, sensing the ebb and flow of energy, predicting the spirit's movements, and responding with confidence. Finally, the spirit recoiled one last time, dissolving into mist that vanished into the night. The forest grew still, the hum of magic softening into a gentle whisper. Lorien sank to his knees, exhausted but victorious. Elise knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You have done well," she said softly. "But remember, every victory draws a greater challenge. The spirit has learned from us. It will test us again, and next time it may be stronger." Lorien nodded, still catching his breath. "Then we will be ready together." They rose and continued through the forest, moving deeper into the unknown. The trees grew taller and denser, and the air thickened with magic. Lorien felt the pull of the hidden currents, sensing the life in every leaf, every stone, every shadow. The forest was alive, and it seemed to recognize them as allies, guiding their steps while remaining wary. As they walked, Elise shared more of her past, her voice low and almost mournful. "I was not always alone. Once there were others who tried to help me, who sought to understand the curse. But the spirit, it is patient. It waits, and it destroys those who falter. I lost them because they could not face the darkness within themselves." Lorien listened, his heart aching for her. "I will not falter," he said. "I will stay with you no matter what." She looked at him, her eyes reflecting both gratitude and fear. "I hope your courage is enough," she whispered. The night deepened, and they came to a small clearing where the moonlight shone directly onto a circle of stones. The energy here was intense, almost unbearable, and Lorien felt a pull at his mind. The spirit was near, testing them even now. Elise took his hand, her grip firm. "We must rest here for a moment. The next trial will be difficult. The forest, it will reveal secrets, temptations, and fears. You must be ready." Lorien nodded, holding her hand tightly. He could feel the bond between them growing stronger, a connection forged in courage, trust, and shared danger. Whatever lay ahead, he knew he would not face it alone. But even as they rested, the shadows moved at the edges of the clearing, restless and patient. The spirit had not vanished. It had only retreated, waiting for the moment when their guard would falter, when fear or doubt would weaken them. And somewhere deep in the darkness, a faint whisper echoed, carrying a promise and a threat. The greatest test has not yet begun. The forest had grown impossibly dark, yet beneath the black canopy of twisted branches, a pale light glimmered, guiding Lorien and Elise toward the heart of the hidden realm. Every step felt heavier, as though the forest itself weighed upon them. The hum of magic that had once been gentle now pulsed like a living heartbeat, echoing through their chests. "This is the center," Elise whispered, her voice tense. "The place where the spirit is strongest. It knows we are here. Everything you have learned, everything you have become, it will test it now." Lorian's grip on her hand tightened. "Then we face it together. Whatever happens, we do not turn back." Elise nodded, a flicker of hope and fear in her eyes. "We will need trust, courage, and clarity. Anything less, and it will take everything from us." The clearing ahead was vast, a circular arena surrounded by enormous stones carved with runes that glowed faintly. In the center stood the spirit, larger and more imposing than before. Its form flickered like smoke, and its eyes burned with a cold light that seemed to pierce through everything. Lorian took a deep breath. "It ends tonight," he said, though the words were both a promise and a warning. The spirit moved without sound, circling them like a predator, testing, measuring, probing for weakness. Shadows stretched outward, reaching for them, whispering fears and doubts, echoing memories of failure, loss, and helplessness. Lorian felt the pull in his chest, a tug at his mind that made his vision blur. "Focus on me," Elise whispered, stepping closer. "Remember the warmth, the trust, the bond we share. That is your shield, that is your strength." He nodded, closing his eyes, letting her words anchor him. He felt the light in his heart, the warmth of their connection, the courage he had cultivated, and the trust that had never wavered. Slowly, he let that light spread, filling every corner of his mind and body, pushing back the shadows. The spirit struck, lashing out with tendrils of darkness that seemed to stretch endlessly. Lorian raised his hands, feeling the currents of energy flow through him. He could sense Elise beside him, drawing power from the forest, from the glowing stones, and from their combined will. Together they formed a shield of light, holding back the darkness. "Good," Elise said, her voice steady. "Do not falter, trust your heart, trust us." The spirit recoiled for a moment, then surged forward, stronger and faster. The ground trembled beneath its power, and the air grew thick with tension. Lorian felt his strength falter for an instant, doubt creeping in, but he remembered her hand in his, the courage they had built together, and the warmth that had always guided him. He opened his eyes and stepped forward, facing the spirit directly. Energy coursed through him, mingling with Elise's power. The runes on the surrounding stones pulsed in response, and a glow spread outward, illuminating the clearing. Lorian could see the spirit hesitate, sensing the combined force of their courage and trust. "Now," Elise whispered, "combine our strength. Let it flow through us together." Lorian nodded, reaching out with his mind and heart. He let the light within him merge with the energy Elise was drawing from the forest. A brilliant glow surrounded them, radiating outward, pushing the spirit back, forcing it to recoil against the purity of their combined will. The spirit shrieked, a soundless wail that echoed in the very air, twisting the shadows and warping the trees. It struck again, harder, faster, but the light held. The shadows clawed at them, whispering fears and regrets, but Lorian and Elise remained steadfast, their bond unbreakable. "You can do this," Elise said, her voice calm and strong. "Believe in yourself, believe in us." With a final surge of will, Lorian reached into the center of the light, pushing with every ounce of strength and courage he possessed. Elise mirrored him, channeling her magic and the energy of the forest. The glow intensified, brighter than the moon, brighter than the stars, until the shadows could no longer withstand it. The spirit let out a final, silent scream before dissolving into mist, vanishing from the clearing entirely. The air grew still, the pulsing hum of magic softening into a gentle whisper. The forest itself seemed to exhale as if relieved. Lorian sank to his knees, exhausted but triumphant. Elise knelt beside him, her hand on his shoulder, eyes filled with admiration and relief. "We did it," she whispered. "It is over, at least for now." He looked at her, his chest heaving, and smiled weakly. "No, we did it together." For a long moment they sat in silence, listening to the gentle hum of the forest, the light of the runes fading into a soft glow. Lorian realized that he had not only survived the test, but had grown stronger in the process. He had learned courage, trust, and the power of connection. Elise stood and extended her hand. Lorian took it, and together they walked toward the edge of the clearing. The forest seemed to guide them, the shadows no longer threatening, the energy peaceful and protective. "You have changed," Elise said softly, "not just because of the trials, but because of your heart. You are stronger, braver, and more connected to this world than most could ever be." "And you," Lorian replied, "are incredible. You taught me, guided me, and trusted me even when the danger was greatest. I could not have done this without you." Elise smiled faintly, a mixture of relief and quiet joy. Then we are even. You have given me courage as well, courage to trust, to hope, and to believe that the curse is not all that defines me. They walked in silence, the forest gradually giving way to the hidden courtyard beneath the city. The glowing flowers and fountains reflected their image, not just as two individuals, but as a pair united by trust, courage, and love. Lorien paused, looking at Elise. What now? The spirit is gone, but the curse, does it still bind you? Elise considered this, her eyes reflecting the faint shimmer of magic around them. It does not control me anymore. The spirit has been subdued, not destroyed. It will not follow us unless we falter. But its presence has changed me. I am stronger, more aware, and I am free to choose my path. And you choose to stay with me? Lorien asked, his voice filled with hope and longing. Elise reached out, brushing a strand of hair from his face. Yes, she said softly. Because together we are stronger than any darkness, and because I trust in you more than anyone else. Lorien smiled, relief and joy flooding him. Then we face whatever comes next together. As they walked back through the streets above the city, the first light of dawn began to touch the towers of the palace. The gilded walls reflected the rising sun, a reminder of the world they had left behind, but Lorien no longer felt bound by it. The streets below no longer seemed narrow and confining. They were paths of possibility, of adventure, and of choice. Baron Kales, standing at a balcony high above, watched silently as his son returned. He noticed a change in Lorien, a confidence and strength that had not been there before. For the first time, he felt a pang of humility, realizing that his son had faced dangers and learned lessons beyond the reach of wealth and power. Lorien looked at the palace one last time, then back at Elise. "Shall we go?" he asked. "Yes," she said, smiling. "The world is wide and our story is just beginning." They stepped forward together, leaving behind the shadowed forest and the trials of the hidden realm. Though the spirit had been subdued, they both knew that the world was full of challenges, of shadows and mysteries. But now they faced it not as individuals, but as a united force, bound by trust, courage, and love. As they walked into the city streets, a faint shimmer of magic lingered in the air, a reminder that the hidden world was never truly gone. And somewhere beyond the horizon, new adventures awaited, new challenges and new moments of wonder. But for now, they had survived the greatest trial. They had faced darkness, overcome fear, and discovered the strength that comes not just from power, but from connection. Lorien glanced at Elise, and she smiled back. In that simple exchange, more was said than words could capture. Trust, courage, hope, and love, all intertwined, unbreakable, and eternal. And as the first rays of sunlight touched the city, it was clear that the boy who had once whispered about a beggar's beauty had grown into a young man capable of facing the shadows and of creating his own light. The world was theirs to explore together.